Back from lunch, we will take up department item number 4, adoption of a resolution initiating an amendment to the future land use map for certain properties located in the Port Salerno CRA to allow for construction of the Manatee Pocket Prong STA. Ms. Corres.
Thank you. Susan Corres, Office of Community Development. We're bringing this item this afternoon, and I would like to ask for the board to indulge me in actually reading the item. And the reason for that is that it's a complex series of transactions that need to happen, and I think it's laid out really nicely with subtitles and not subtitles, with
Nice.
headings. Thank you. Right. How about that? So that everybody here would be able to easily understand it, as well as those who are watching from home. Yes?
Well, which means that it probably won't be that easy to understand if we're going to go through that kind of an introduction, but nonetheless, go
That was the most complex part. How's that?
for the explanation.
So I'll start with a summary of the project, and then I'm going to run through the transactions that would be needed to happen, that need to happen to make it to bring the project to successful completion. Staff with the Ecosystem Restoration and Management Division of the Public Works Department has worked to plan and develop the project, which is the Manatee Pocket Southwest Prong Stormwater Treatment Area, which aims to reduce harmful nutrients in the Southwest Prong. The Southwest Prong is the last tributary of the Manatee Pocket to receive necessary water treatment and is critical to the overall health of the waterway. The project will consist of a treatment train involving 2 wet detention ponds, 2 diversion weir structures, enhanced vegetated channels, and a Summit high-performance upflow filter system with bioactive media prior to discharge. It is projected to remove approximately 334 pounds of total nitrogen and 234 pounds of total phosphorus per year from the downstream Manatee Pocket and the Indian River Lagoon, which are currently designated impaired by the Federal Department of Environmental Protection. This project is in the Ecosystems Division CIP and is fully funded. And I believe we have representation from ECO to answer any questions when we get there. Hey, John. So the transactions to make this project successfully complete. To realize this important water quality project, county staff has negotiated with landowner to obtain 6 of landowner's vacant lots located in the Port Salerno CRA totaling approximately 1.88 acres. I'm going to refer to those acres as the lots. The landowner has representation here, so any questions that you might have for him, we would be able to ask and get those answered. The landowner has agreed to convey the lots to the county at no cost in consideration for the county's 1, abandonment of 4 unopened right-of-ways in the vicinity of the project, totaling approximately 0.99 acres, and I'm going to refer to those as the right-of-ways. 2, initiation of amendments to the future land use map and zoning atlas for the abandoned right-of-ways and the northern portion of 3 parcels owned by landowner along Cove Road, totaling approximately 1.97 acres, which we're going to call the retained parcels. And if you want to go to that map, John, yeah. It should be just at the end of this.
401.
Yeah. So the ones that we're referring to as the lots are those in yellow, and that is what the landowner will be conveying. Those that we are talking about, the right-of-ways, are the purple, which we will look to have abandoned. And those green squares attached to the bigger properties are those that will be rezoned, well, a new future land use, and will also be rezoned. The proposed future land use designation and zoning classification for the retained parcels and the right-of-ways will change from CRA neighborhood to CRA center, and that's those 3 that you see in green, and from detached to corridor respectively. In addition, landowner has agreed to grant county a temporary construction and permanent access easement over a portion of the right-of-way necessary to construct and maintain the project. And that's that right there is where we will look to have the easement. The properties that are the subject of this agenda item are depicted on the attached Exhibit A, and we just went through which those are. The legal descriptions and land areas of these properties subject to this agenda item are shown on Exhibit B. So if anybody does want to know the exact land area, et cetera, we have that information. If authorized today, additional future agenda items will come before the Martin County Board of County Commissioners, including proposed, 1, adoption of resolutions abandoning the right-of-ways, accepting the easement, and accepting the deeds for the lots. 2, adoption of an amendment to the future land use map for the retained parcels and the abandoned right-of-ways. And 3, adoption of an amendment to the zoning atlas for the retained parcels and the abandoned right-of-ways. The proposed changes in the future land use map and zoning atlas will be subject to a full staff analysis and must meet all policies and regulations governing such map amendments. The proposed amendments will be the subject of public hearings before the local planning agency and the Board of County Commissioners at a future date. Additionally, the Board of County Commissioners will be presented with an escrow agreement, which will address the timing requirements of the several steps described herein. This escrow agreement will be prepared by county staff and will set forth the process for recording the deeds conveying the lots, the easement, and the resolution abandoning the right-of-ways. In short, once executed, these 3 documents will be held in escrow until all public meetings have occurred and all appeals periods related to the proposed changes in the future land use map and zoning atlas have expired. Upon expiration of the applicable appeals periods, all documents will be released from escrow and the transaction with landowner will be complete. In summary, this project aims to provide important nutrient reduction in the Manatee Pocket Southwest Prong, enhance the natural environment, and provides the public with open space and access to the area's natural features. The lots to be conveyed to the county are key to achieving better drainage, reduced flooding, and increased water quality in the Port Salerno CRA as required by the Community Redevelopment Plan's public services goal of providing basic public infrastructure for stormwater, potable water, and sanitary systems for existing and future development. Since much of the existing development in Port Salerno was built before basic stormwater standards were established, retrofit projects represent important improvements to the water quality and protection of the Manatee Pocket. This particular item has been initiated by the Growth Management, the CRA, and the Ecosystems in Public Works departments. We've all been working on that, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, to start with, that was well done, for as complicated as that could have been. You made it relatively simple, straightforward.
See? How about that?
Relatively.
Brought it to life.
There you go. Commissioner Hurd.
This is a complicated project. Mr. Mayle has been working diligently on this project for as long as he's been working for Martin County. And the landowner, and we all know the landowner, is a substantial landowner in Martin County and is loath to surrender any of his properties or sell any of his properties. So it's a wonderful accomplishment. It's really going to be a good project. It's good for the landowner. It's great for us. So thank you very much for working so hard to bring this project together.
Mr. Mayle, you have anything you want to add?
I have to respond to that. I appreciate those remarks, but this is the consequence of ingenuity, commitment, intelligence, and hard work by Susan and the legal office and growth management and Zach Hughes. I just get to be here to enjoy the fruit of that work.
And I apologize for forgetting legal.
Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Raines, you wish to add anything?
You've done an excellent job also, Mr.
No, I haven't. No, other than I do agree with Commissioner Hurd. This is a win-win situation, and we've certainly been willing to work with the staff, and they've been great to work with in trying to come up with the concept as to how to just pull all this together. So we look forward to hopefully making it all come to fruition.
Mr. Great.
Second? Do you want a second?
I,
Can't be second.
Somebody else can if they want to.
you want a second?
No, that's fine. Just making sure you had one.
Okay, great. We do have a motion. We have a second. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing no one from the public, back to the board. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great job, guys.
All right.
Super.
See, John, there's a vote for you.
That was about an hour ago.
Too little, too late.
You got one.
Next item on the agenda is Department Item Number 5, update on Martin County Airport Witham Fields diversification and aeronautical use. Sam Carver.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Sam Carver, Manager, Martin County Airport. As requested, I'm here to provide you with an airport update and seeking direction for future airport improvements. The first topic is in regards to the fixed base operators. There's been a lot of changes recently. It started with Stewart Jet Center. Let's see, let me switch slide. Stewart Jet Center was acquired by Ross Aviation in August of '21. A few months after that, Ross Aviation merged with Atlantic Aviation. This merger was across the entire country at all 17 Ross locations, not just Martin County. Atlantic Aviation understood from the beginning they would be required to sell one of the FBOs. They did that, and on April 8th, they assigned their original leasehold to APP Properties. APP Properties owns 4 other FBOs, one in Fort Pierce, one in Virginia, one in California, and one in Colorado. So looking at the map, what we had before these changes, Stewart Jet Center was in red and Atlantic Aviation was in blue. And now moving forward, we will have Atlantic Aviation in blue and APP Jet Center in purple. Any questions about the FBOs?
Not so far.
All right, so the next topic I'd like to discuss is in regards to the bipartisan infrastructure law that was recently passed by the federal government. From this bill, Martin County Airport will be allocated an additional $763,000 a year from the FAA for the next 5 years. The FAA recently reached out to us and requested us to provide them with a list of eligible projects that are currently not funded. During our discussions, the FAA specifically brought up the runway protection zone and if the county would be in a position to get rid of the EMAS on the runway 30N. Okay, so EMAS stands for Engineered Material Resting System. It was installed here in 2011. This was because the runways did not have the FAA standard 1,000 feet of overrun at the end of the runways. On the 12 end, it's because of Monterey. On the 30 end, it's because of the golf course fence. These EMAS systems have a typical lifespan of about 15 years. So staff is seeking direction on how we want to move forward in regards to the EMAS. Option 1 would be to rehabilitate and maintain both ends, which would be an approximate cost of $14 million over the next 3 to 5 years. Option 2 would be to rehabilitate the runway 12 EMAS and eliminate the runway 30 EMAS, which would bring the cost down to about $6 million. Also, there's addendum A. If we move forward with option 2, we would look to standardize the hold bay at taxiway Alpha and runway 30. Right now, it doesn't meet the current FAA design criteria. That would highlighted in green would require a little piece of the golf course property right there to make that happen, and that would be about a cost of $1 million. So in order to accomplish option 2, the airport would need to acquire unused golf course property for an estimated $450,000. Once that occurred, we would be able to remove the existing EMAS, regrade and turf the standard runway safety area, relocate the cart path, and install a new wildlife fence for an estimated $2 million total cost. So on this slide, this is the picture on the left is what it looks like today. You can see the EMAS and the fence in blue. And if we went with option 2, we would be able to move the fence from the highlighted red 600 feet. And then we could remove the EMAS and leave that with smooth grass overrun. The length of the runway would not change, and the type of aircraft using the runway would not change. So this is a larger picture, and this one's also including addendum A on what that new airport, that run-up area whole bay would look like with the new design. Okay, so before the next stop, are there any questions about EMAS?
Do you want us to wait till you finish, or do you want us to start?
We can, what do you think? Finish? Okay. Okay, next topic, the final topic, is the,
Do you want to go now?
Doesn't matter.
the discussion of available aeronautical property on the airport. We have 3 pieces of property highlighted here in blue. The first property is Public Works. It is ideal for piston aircraft based on the limitations of the taxiways. If we move forward with that, we could have that possibly ready for aeronautical ramp space by 3 to 5 years. The next property is on here is labeled Dixie. That is open to any type of general aviation aircraft. It's slightly constrained. It would need a modification to taxiway Alpha, and that theoretically could happen in 2 to 3 years. The Monterey property is available, but it has many safety area constraints, lacks a taxiway, it's close proximity to the runway safety area, and it has a line of sight issue with the control tower. This is a closer look at what the Dixie property could look like if improved. We can maintain the 150-foot green buffer. Taxiway Alpha would have to be modified. Landside access would have to be created from Dixie Highway. Taxiway Alpha would be FAA eligible. Approximate cost of $1.5 million, and that could be done in, like I said, 2 to 3 years. And that concludes the presentation, just where we're looking for direction on where to go on these topics.
Commissioners, your choice. We have a couple of public speakers. You want to take them first before you comment?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. First public speaker we have is Mr. McDonald. Following Mr. McDonald is Eric Ingram, and following Eric is Mr. Berenger. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's been a long time since I've been here, probably 20-some years. I'm here to ask you guys just to consider the impact of the future decisions for the Martin County Airport. Most importantly, that to be the small business and the small guy operator, the smaller GA operator. Everything out here at this airport is considered general aviation. But when I'm talking about the smaller general aviation people, I'm talking about the guy that has the 172 or the Cessna, 150 or Piper Warrior. Since we've got the new FBOs that are no longer owned by anybody in Martin County, these are all companies that are owned outside of Martin County. They're kind of controlling the interest of our local taxpayer. So what's happening now is we're beholden to these large corporations outside of our county, and they don't know who Ed Campy is or Scott McDonald or John Smith. I mean, they're run out of another company like Plano, out of another state like Plano, Texas, is where Atlantic is. So I'm here really just to speak of a general aviation guy like me that operates a small airplane on the airport. And when you're making these decisions on what we're going to do with the future of the airport and the future of those properties, that we consider how the public access is. This is our only access to Martin County Airport as a flyer. We have a million beaches, we got other boat ramps, we got all this other stuff, but this is the only place that we can go access the sky from. And just to give you a perfect example, the other day I had a lady come to me in my office and she said, I can't get a spot to park my airplane. And she had a little Cessna 150 that she bought for like $30,000. And I said, that's unconscionable. You've got to be able to get it. So I talked to the one FBO and they said, we don't have any space. There's no space available. We have no land available. And she said, well, she called the other FBO and it's $400 a month. And I said, there's no way it's $400 a month to park a little airplane like that. And so I made the phone call, and yeah, sure enough, it's almost $400 a month to park your airplane outside on the ramp. Called Fort Pierce, it's $75 a month. I called Palm Beach, it's $180 a month. So, we're getting super expensive for a local person to be able to enjoy the only public access. So that's all I'm here for, is just to say, guys, think about what we're doing with these last 3 remaining parcels, and what is the access going to look like for the future? Thanks.
Sir. Mr. Ingram, you're next. Following Mr. Ingram is Mr. Berenger.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I'm here representing the Experimental Aircraft Association. We currently is the largest aviation organization of its kind in the world. We have roughly 300 to 500 members here locally. I can tell you right now, we've lost 6 of our members. They're still members that have sold their airplanes simply because there's no place to keep them in Martin County. A lot of people take the general aviation, I'm using general aviation kind of loosely here, I should say non-commercial general aviation, I think might be a more appropriate fit. But for this conversation, we'll call it GA. They think it's a bunch of guys that just, go out and they have a toy and they play with it, and they completely discount what the general aviation community provides. You can go online and check it out. Angel Flight, Veterans for Life, Veterans Airlift, Wings of Hope, Pilots and Paws. The list goes on and on. There's 15 to 20 charitable organizations that are basically taken care of by the general aviation community. Many of you might recall after the hurricane devastated the Abacos, the bulk of what went over there was all general aviation aircraft. Since 1984, I have watched the decline of this airport in terms of usage availability to general aviation aircraft. You can, where it was Galaxy, now Atlantic, all the shade hangars there, we figured it was roughly 30 aircraft could fit in those shade hangars. They were all bulldozed, and yes, they needed to be replaced because they were pretty rotten shape, but a lot of the community assumed, and correctly so, that those shade hangars would have been replaced. They weren't. They're now a parking lot that has absolutely nothing to do with aviation. It's a parking lot for the guys with the jets and or rental cars that are provided by Atlantic Aviation now. There were a number of old hangars that are over by the airport administration building. Again, we assumed wrongfully that those would have been replaced. Those hangars would have been replaced by more T hangars or a replacement. They're not. They're now partially vacant land and another 10,000 square foot hangar. So, and even on the map that was provided earlier, if you looked at his blue and his green, or red and blue spots, those areas are now all commercial aviation. So I would just ask, and kind of dovetailing on what Scott said, if you would really consider general aviation, small piston aircraft when you make your decisions. Thank you for your time.
Sir, Mr. Berenger. And we have one more speaker after Mr. Berenger, Mr. McChrystal.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody. For the record, Alex Berenger speaking on behalf of Fairwind Air Charter, a local Stewart-based aircraft charter management firm. We employ almost 100 people. We've been at Stewart for almost 25 years. I have a couple of comments on the airport item. With respect to the FBO status, over the last 2 years, the airport has reached its aircraft storage capacity. Influx of new aircraft provides immense upward pricing pressure, as mentioned by the previous speakers. Hangar rent tenants have seen dramatic price increases in their rent rates. Increases in excess of 30% have been communicated to certain tenants, and this is occurring on multiple bases. The recent mergers of the 2 FBOs and the necessary sale and assignment of 1 FBO leasehold has placing additional unique stresses upon airport users. Witham Field is quickly losing the Martin County feel as the airport's economic environment is moving from locally owned small businesses to venture capital corporate ownership. Decisions that used to be made on the local level with years of relationship and friendships are now made in a vacuum of a 1,000-mile-away corporate office. This is creating unique issues and is very troublesome for local businesses trying to stay profitable and based here at Martin County. Fairwind, as well as other companies, I'm sure, would have welcomed to either independently or through a co-op to participate in the recent bid and transaction. Unfortunately, to the detriment of Martin County's own, this situation was never afforded to us, and the deal was commensurate without our input or participation. With regards to the EMAS, real briefly, we strongly recommend that the board elect and direct staff to pursue option 1. EMAS is a very expensive system to maintain. It is designed to prevent runway overruns while protecting the integrity of aircraft. It's designed to keep airplanes on airport property away from neighboring environments, businesses, residences, roads. The other, probably equally important consideration is mitigation of aircraft breakup once it comes off the end of the runway. Accident databases are replete with stories of aircraft coming off the end, disintegrating, getting their gear sheared off, fuel bays opening up, and thousands of gallons running into soil, causing millions in cleanup costs. It's worth the research, and that was not mentioned in the presentation. Lastly, with regard to the available aeronautical properties, we request that the board give direction to staff for careful and thoughtful aeronautical use development. And the important part of this is this development needs to be independent from the 2 chain FBOs. It needs to benefit local businesses, local tenants, and local aircraft owners. We request that the board provide staff direction to make the public works location available to small general aviation aircraft in the form of T-hangar or shade hangar storage. We further request that the board direct staff to open the Dixie and Monterey parcels to careful development and now plan CIP integration for taxiway and runway integration. This will take several years. The property should be awarded favoring local businesses based on competitive, community quality bid processing. Thank you very much.
Crystal? This last public speaker form I have, if anybody else would like to speak on this item, please fill out one of these forms and get it to the bailiff. Mr. Crystal, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. At the ANAC meeting this week, I got some more clues. One is the FAA has changed its tune on what they consider highest and best use on airport properties, and they're no longer hard and fast on we want aeronautical aviation businesses only. They seem to understand the ups and downs of that industry, and having other types of businesses on the airport is actually a good thing long term. So therefore, I don't feel as though you need to be pushed in any aeronautical only direction on the airport property. One more time, as many times as it's explained to me by George and Sam and everybody else, my brain just doesn't want to comprehend how we own the airport and yet we still pay rent to have our stuff on the airport. It just doesn't jive. Of the 3 projects, the Monterey land that's empty, I would hope and pray that you understand the thousands of homes, churches, and schools directly, and the YMCA directly to the northwest of that. And I would hope you would keep that as a buffer zone in perpetuity, actually. The Dixie project, because of its location, you could cram in another jet hangar there. It would be crammed in, and you need another access to Dixie Highway. So you'll probably go that direction. The public works property, again, tell me why we have to, use it for aviation only. And without getting into torrid details of this airport's history, okay, and why we need EMAS as a mitigation for the safety violations of the illegally extended runway 1230, without getting into those torrid details, I just think that you, as representing all of us, understand that it's time to do what you can to put the least amount of planes in the sky. Sam did a great job at the Stewart News or Treasure Coast News in his spin story about how slow the growth has been at the airport. He just compared 2019 and on. The truth is, jet traffic has doubled since 2013. Now, we're already there. The market dictates what's happening there. And yes, the wealthiest people in the world are coming here, and they have more money than everybody else. So they will get their way. Another thought is this. Sorry, boys, but the last thing we need is more little planes buzzing around, mixing with the jets. All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Again, that was the last public speaker forum I have. Anybody else wish to address this at this time? Seeing none, we'll close out public comment. Come back to the board. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the EMAS options. Option 1 is to rehabilitate and maintain both EMASs at a cost of $14 million, which sounds to me like it's approximately $7 million apiece. So then we move on to option 2, which is to rehabilitate and maintain only runway 12 and eliminate runway 30 EMAS. But that would necessitate purchasing $450,000 worth of golf course and making improvements worth another $2 million. So that's $2.5 million. Why isn't that cost 7 plus 2.5? So you say it's $6 million. My math says it's 9.5.
Well, the EMAS on the golf course end is longer, so it wouldn't cost as much to replace it in the future. The end next to Monterey is shorter. So it would cost $6 million on that end, $8 million on the other end.
My preference is to rehabilitate and maintain both EMASs, just because it's an important safety measure. I recognize that the cost is prohibitive, but, so we'll have to deal with that. And also, I agree with all of the public speakers that we have given up on general aviation at Witham Field, and it's time to reclaim that position. So any improvements that I would favor piston aircraft. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to address the Public Works parcel and figure out a general aviation use for that. I would favor T-hangars, shade hangars. I think shade hangars are a little goofy, but T-hangars certainly would be preferable and would give general aviation another spot on the field, because there's nothing now except for Witham Aero Club, and that's a pretty tough fraternity to get into. Thanks.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Oh, I think you checked off some of my points. I have about 9 million too, so I favor option 1 on the EMAS. By the time you acquire the property, plus the clearing, which always tends to take more money. So, and I think there was a valid point on containing the aircraft, should you need that EMAS. Number 2, I would agree we need to focus on smaller general aviation, and we've somewhat lost sight of that. I would add, in addition to that, we have committed, and we've had this presentation last week from the BDB, how we are focusing on innovation, marine and aviation industries, and jobs for those industries. So in addition to smaller general aviation, and when I say GA, I mean the smaller general aviation, we need to focus on businesses that bring aviation jobs. Not just storage facilities, but businesses that are actively having these aviation jobs that we've said are important to us in this innovation district and the Reach Center. The Reach Center is what's going to help, I think, train some of those folks. And I would say Dixie Highway, I think just like some of the boat ramp discussions we have, we should look at maybe investing in designing and planning and how that would look in the future for some of these smaller general aviation. And you mentioned Public Works. Why would, if Public Works was gone today, you think that would take 3 to 5 years to have some?
I think 3 is with, if they were gone today, 5 is the buffer. I think possibly 3 years.
Then I think even more importantly, then we need to commit today to have some future design and planning for both Public Works and Dixie Highway, and I'm not interested in the Monterey section.
And why it could be sped up a little bit is because of this infrastructure money. It gives us a little bit more leniency where we're not competing against other airport projects. We could use this money quicker.
Okay, and I would just add in addition, again, through some of our Reach Center and our advocacy with Tallahassee and our education, those that are going into aviation and marine fields, we need to have that public access to the airport so we can promote those industries. So if we're committed to doing that, then I think we have to commit to looking forward to designing and planning for those industries.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had agreed that the airport is in sort of in a transition mode. I remember being asked to come over and speak to Dan Capon, and he was telling me that, hey, there's a possibility that Stewart Jet Center is going to be purchased. And then, within several months later, I hear, oh, well, Atlantic. And I said, no, I heard that. I said, I thought it was, and then I realized it's everybody. I had an opportunity to meet with our staff to discuss the different components of the airport. The one complaint and concern that I hear repeatedly out in the community is what I've also heard echoed here today, which is we are sort of, maybe not by design, but just by happenstance, fading away from the community airport that it was, the community-friendly airport, the general aviation, all of those phrases that we continued to hear about with them. And now we're in transition again. We have been trying as a county staff for several years. Mr. Donaldson has been leading the charge to move our maintenance facilities off the airport property. I guess back in the day when it was originally put there, it was much smaller scale, it was centrally located, but I mean, we don't have to get into the fact that we have, 100 or more, probably more employees there now with subpar restroom facilities. It's absolutely time. And we've taken steps, although they've been a long process, to finally relocate our organization off the airport property. That being said, I am in complete agreement that that the Public Works footprint be used as finally an advantage for us to get back to what we wanted to be, which was shade or T. I got to tell you, I don't know either one of those. I've seen them. I'm not an expert on those. If the group of local business owners that have been here for decades, I trust and value. Some of them are my friends. I trust their opinion. They live here. They're not looking to destroy our community. This airport has been there since it was a base, an airfield. I think that makes perfect sense that we would use that. And if it's something that has to be county-run to create sort of the competitive atmosphere that would allow us to price things, to keep folks that are just in the entry level of aviation, then so be it, versus divvying it up somehow to the FBOs. I agree, and look, I'm happy that national companies were interested in investing in our community. I don't try to say anything to disparage them, but nothing like homegrown locals, especially from our point of view. So I'm completely in favor of that. And, I guess I've been here long enough to realize that we move at the speed of government. I can't imagine why that would take 3 years, but I trust your professional opinions. I see Mr. Stokas is shaking his head as well. So as fast as you can. Let's get back to that. The Dixie property, I'd like to see, I know there's been some conversation. We've all met with staff individually. We're not allowed to meet collectively. I would personally like to see a plan brought forward as an agenda item that we can discuss collectively. I had an opportunity to speak to our staff about different suggestions. I'd like to have it where the public could be there. And if there are some clever ideas that someone has that's not necessarily putting additional planes in the sky, I'm interested in hearing about it. With a couple of caveats. One, the tree buffer has to stay. We don't need to see right through the fence and look at this. We already have a tree buffer. If we had to plant a tree buffer, it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So let's keep that. The Monterey, as far as I'm concerned, every 5 or 6 or 7 years, that sort of like creeps back up. I'm 100% not interested in any options that would affect Monterey. It's just, it's enough. There's plenty of other opportunities on the property. Let's leave that one alone. I agree that it creates a buffer for the northern portion of those folks. I don't want to be involved in that. And,
EMAS?
oh, EMAS. My position on EMAS has actually changed a little bit based on public comment. So when folks think about like, hey, should I come and make a public comment or not? Does it make a difference? In my world, it does. Because, I had an opportunity to hear from staff, and as a layperson, a non-aviation person, I think the EMAS is expensive. I remember when we put it in. I remember it caught a plane a couple of years ago, probably saved some lives. I supported putting it in at the time because, the way that it was presented, the technology was there, that it was a good idea. It's shockingly expensive. And we're coming up potentially on the end of its functional usefulness, and I don't think it's one of those things where you can sort of stretch it out a couple extra years. It's a safety tool. So that's out. Now, I would tell you, coming into today's meeting, I was much more in favor of removing one side of it, extending the fence into the portion of the golf course that we own, and saving, $4, $5, $6, $7 million. I think the average person that doesn't know about these issues would think, look, we're saving millions of dollars. Sold. But I don't know enough about it that if containing the plane right at the base of the runway there and potentially stopping it from breaking apart and leaking its aviation fuel and creating a massive fire basically onto the golf course or onto the residential homes that are not that far away. We all know, depending on the time of year and season in terms of drought, that fire could get away from us. And so with that in mind, I got to start thinking, like, is the savings of those millions of dollars, which, as Commissioner Hurd said, that's all paid for within the airport, correct? That's not coming out of general funds. That's either FAA grant money or money that you're able to pull down from the FDOT or FAA, or it's money that's generated in your enterprise fund on the airport, correct? So, and that money stays there anyway, so if I was running the airport and had a budget, I'd probably make that a priority. So I've switched, I know I said to staff, I think that that's a no-brainer, get rid of the EMAS, but I didn't hear the other facets of it. Not that you were keeping that information from me, but that's what these meetings are all about. So, to recap briefly, yes to the maintenance area for being T-hangers or shade, or whatever the group decides. Yes to having a plan come back to us for economic development in some variation, either obviously aviation, but it doesn't have to be, what do they call them, operations? Or at least, obviously not a training school that has tons of operations. No to Monterey and rehab the EMAS. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Jenkins?
I have some connection to aviation over my years, and I too, exactly, when I came in here today, I was all about saving money, and, we got land that we're not using, and it all made sense. I've never flown an airplane, a jet before, and my airplane could and did go off-road a couple of times, and it wasn't a great big deal, but a jet is completely different. So, Alex's comments really kind of swayed my opinion on that. T-hangers are a no-brainer on the Public Works site. We should be already in a planning state. We've been talking about this, George, how long? A couple of years?
Oh.
That it was a possibility? Yeah, so anyway, coming back with a plan for the future use of the A1A, and I'm out on the Monterey. I completely concur with the comments here. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, I'll give you my 20 cents. I dealt with this issue for 15 years. Survived through a handful of election cycles in spite of it, and fought the battles that were ruthless over a whole bunch of issues that end up kind of where we are today. The options that have been given us today, and even listening to some of your comments, fly smack in the face of what we worked 15 years to get to in the first place. And that was, first of all, residents' trust that we were not going to expand the airport in any shape, form, or fashion. It took a better part of 8 or 9 years, maybe 10 years, to actually get the FAA to agree to formally delineate the boundaries of the airport that was always kind of this political thing in play that, oh no, everything they're doing out there is a ruse. The real goal is to lengthen the runway, expand the airport, turn it into a commercial airport, which was never the intent. But we finally got the FAA to capitulate to defining the boundaries. Because when we got sued, it was sort of open for debate, and there were times where the FAA said, you know, if we really want to push the envelope, we can take back all of the airport property. This building, Monterey Commons next to us, the YMCA, everything that was originally within the entire capacity of the airport. And that monumental decision took all of that off the table and told our residents, we are not going to expand the airport. I get a presentation from staff, probably the worst one I've ever seen, that starts showing me options of moving the fence line into the golf course. What a stupid idea. I don't care whose idea it was. It was stupid because we fought for years to define that boundary and end this thing. And yet here we are again saying, hey, here's an option. Let's move the fence in a pretty little picture further into the golf course that we took holes out of the golf course. Well, now there's no golf course there anymore, so why not do that? I got another idea. Remove the EMAS because it's expensive. Well, I got news for you folks. It was expensive the first time. And we were one of the first general aviation airports in the country to actually get approved EMAS to deal with the runway length issue, the runway protection zones, and all of the runoff areas. But here we are again, messing with the argument. To say to people, well, you know, we're really kidding. We're really even willing to entertain the idea of messing with the fence line. Stupid, my opinion. Which is why I told you guys 3 weeks ago or a month ago, whenever that was, I want no part of this. You all can go through the 15 years of what I went through. Sarah was here for some of it. Nonsense. We don't make any more inlet harbors and put any more docks in the county because it's against the rules to do so. Sure, it's expensive to have a boat slip in this county. It is wicked expensive to buy a boat slip in this county. I'm sure it's wicked expensive to buy a T-hangar or a space out at the airport for an airplane. There's no difference. It's all expensive. Prices for a slip have gone off the charts. $300,000 is not probably an uncommon number for a boat slip. We're not making any more of them. We're not moving the boundaries. We're not cutting into the golf course. We're not making any more boat slips. This idea, from my opinion, you all can vote for it. Good luck with the political ramifications of all this. You want to explore Dixie Highway? That sends another crystal clear message to the public. You are really kidding, not you, but people prior to you, were really kidding about the expansion of the airport. Oh no, it's still all in fair game. It's still all in play. Let's tinker with it. The next argument will be 10 years from now, well, you know, we built Dixie and we got this Monterey thing sitting out there. Well, what the heck, let's do Monterey too. No. When we did those boundaries, enough was enough. That's what we said. We told the public that is the growth of the airport, that is the boundary airport, and we are done with it. And here we are, 8 years later, 7 years later, let's move the boundary. Really stupid. I can't believe we're sitting here having this conversation. Whether Public Works becomes T-hangars or it becomes something else, I'm a little bit ambivalent on that issue. I don't know, George, how the FAA deals with bidding. I don't know how you get around that. Maybe Ed's idea, maybe the county can do it, and maybe we can have a county-run operation. I don't know, maybe that's possible. I don't know what the ramifications are on that. But I have absolutely zero interest in looking at Dixie. All that does, again, is send a message that we are willing to open up the airport for more expansion, and that was not what we told people when we did the boundary change and we got everything else done with EMAS 8-10 years ago. I have no interest in removing EMAS. If it costs $14 million, we'll do exactly what I said I would do 10, 12 years ago when we put the stuff in. We'll go to the FAA and we'll get the money, and by God, we did. And everybody's saying, oh, I don't know if you can do that or not. We can maybe fund one, but God forbid we'd get enough money to do two. Well, we did. We made it happen, and you've got EMAS to either end of the runway. Now we want to remove it. I can't believe we're having this conversation. Public Works, maybe that could be on the table for more small planes, more hangars, and so on. The whole FBO thing is doing its thing, whatever that is. I'm not happy about the changes and what have occurred with the FBOs, but they have a business, and they have the ability to run that business and do their thing with that business, and good for them. Anything else, I am absolutely 100% against supporting anything that even begins to smell, look like, feel like expanding that runway, that airport. Because back in '98, when Donna Melzer was running the county commission, and we have a public speaker that regularly comes to us and complains to us about what's going on at the airport or what happened at the airport, none of us on this board had anything to do with moving that runway. That was done back in '98 and '99 by Donna Melzer. She takes all the credit, and her cronies take all the credit for that project that occurred. No one up on this board had anything to do with that. And this smacks to me of that same kind of general direction that these kind of decisions are taking us. And that started this whole 15-year process that we had to go through for 15 years. So you all can do with it what you want. I don't support that. I will support looking into the possibility of doing something at the Public Works site, but anything past that. That run-up area, taking another slice of the golf course, no. No. Again, that's an expansion. Well, we'll just move the boundary into the golf course a little bit over there. No. The boundaries are what they are. We fought for years to get them solidified. And now you want to go move the fence. No. And if the FAA doesn't like it, have them come down and fight us over it. But I don't support that either. And I thought that was part of the STA over there. We were doing some stormwater work in that general area. Did that not happen, or we weren't going to do that project?
Inside the fence, yes. On our side of the fence, we did that.
So, but does this run-up area now go outside of the fence? Does that take up what that stormwater area
We
was?
need a piece of on the other side of our fence into the golf course to make that happen.
Not for me. I'm 100% out on that stuff. You all can do what you want with it, but good luck with that. Politically, I think it's an absolute time bomb, and I think it's the worst thing that this board could ever take on if that was the direction we were going in. I don't know who is next, Commissioner Campy or Heatherington, but I'm done with that. Do you know?
You
can go first.
Commissioner Heatherington.
So I certainly understand your feelings. I wasn't sitting in here in 1998, but I was involved with the airport, and clearly those are very real and raw for you. But what I heard everybody say is everybody said that, I don't know where the idea came from on the fence or the EMAS, but what I heard was all 5 of us say that they preferred option 1 of leaving the fence, is what I heard. And I didn't hear anybody say anything about expansion. So I would lean, and what I thought I heard was consensus on option 1 on the EMAS, bringing an item back to discuss what Dixie Highway might look like as a separate item. I heard everybody say they were not interested in Monterey. I heard Dixie Highway should be, I'm sorry, Public Works, that should be expedited, and there was a lot of interest in small general aviation, perhaps T-hangars. So I don't know what we need, something like a reach center if we don't promote general aviation, which was the goal of that. So my motion is going to include option 1 of the EMAS, trying to expedite Public Works off that and starting to design or plan what that might look like. 3 to 5 years seems like a long time, so that's why I emphasize expedite. To continue to buffer Monterey, not interested in that, and to bring back an additional agenda item on what we could do with the Dixie Highway section. So that will be my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Taryn, did you want to speak now, or is that old?
No, if I can just, whenever the board.
Go ahead.
So, a couple things, and Commissioner Smith, And those of you who were here, Commissioner Hurd actually was the representative for the board at the time that had to negotiate that settlement that we had, plus the map, the boundary map. So, and it was a very painful process. And I've heard over and over again that the runway was extended illegally. We have opinions from the FAA. It was not done illegally. It was done in cooperation with the FAA. And we have, like I said, a legal opinion on it. But the golf course property was part of that conversation early on and has always been a part of the conversation. And at that time, they did not want to displace the golf holes that were there, and that's why they chose to do something at the other end of the runway. So this airport, I mean, if we really wanted to start talking about the issues with the airport, we could go back to 1972 when the City of Stuart Commission made a decision to develop 18th Street. And at that time, they had an opinion from the FAA asking them not to do that because those residences would be within the runway protection zone. But they did it anyways. And even the airport manager at that time said, do not put houses there. So we have lived years and years of dealing with the issues at that airport. And but we have to manage it. The Public Works property, we had an item, we were getting ready to come to you today, I think it was, or the next meeting, to talk about the site where we're going to move Public Works. We have to build that site first before we can get those folks off of that property. And I think that's why we're looking at least a 3 to 5 year time frame to get that going, because we've got to develop on the site where we're moving. And we will be bringing that, I think, the next meeting is Dawn? Next meeting, yeah. So Mr. Donaldson has been taking the lead on that. So that's why it's going to take us a while. Public Works pays rent on the airport because that was a decision that we received from the FAA as part of our grant assurances that only aviation operations would be on that airport property. And so Public Works pays rent just like any other tenant would. And so that's why that is in there. So I just wanted to clarify a few things for you.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. I don't feel that I'd be doing my job up here, at least in my opinion, my job, if I didn't at least defend the staff to one of my colleagues. I would be hypocritical. I've chastised, in my belief, when Commissioner Hurd has challenged staff in such a way that I felt was stronger than it needed to be. Commissioner Smith, I think your comments to staff and about staff were inappropriate. There's 5 commissioners, and I understand your passion because you've been here the longest and lived through those things. But none of the gentlemen that brought this agenda item forward today or that I met with were. That's their job. They're doing their job. I don't have the same history with the airport that you do. I was not opposed to hearing about the EMAS and whether it should stay or go. The process worked. My colleagues to your left, they weren't here then either. Commissioner Hurd's been here for a long time, but I think, there's a point where passion, you can't start calling our staff stupid or the presentation stupid. That's just not appropriate. I mean, the old adage is that you praise in public and you punish in private. And I know that you're passionate, so I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but at least give the staff the benefit of the doubt, because I was interested until today when I heard from some public comment about removing the EMAS. And I also don't think that moving the fence 650 feet, in my mind, is the same as what it is obviously in your heart, that is a defined boundary that you fought tooth and nail to get. I believe that I could stand somewhere in Palm City and speak to my constituents and say, do we save $5 or $6 or $7 million by moving the fence 650 feet? Up until today, I thought that was a reasonable possibility. I would have wanted to hear from my colleagues, including you. A couple of weeks ago, when you did make a very passionate announcement that you would not participate in any of this and we should not do that, that's not how it works. There's 5 of us. And so I appreciate staff and I thank them. We sat in the conference room last week at some point. They ran through these scenarios. That's their job, not just to speak to the people that have a long history and might have had a front row seat to what that situation was, but to explain it to the rest of us. And I get to make my own decision. I've said this a lot lately. The 5 votes are equal. There is no senior vote. All 5 of us have the same powerful vote. In terms of the Dixie side of this conversation, no one said to me, and unless I'm wrong, about moving the fence line or changing the boundary of the airport. It's a portion of the airport that's there. It's not being used. If I have square footage on a piece of property that I own and I'm not moving the boundary, I don't think that sends the wrong message to the community that we've somehow, moved the fence. If there's an opportunity, and that's why I specifically asked so that I could hear your opinion and Commissioner Hurd's opinion in the future, to hear from my newer colleagues like I am, maybe there's a good idea for that. Maybe it involves a couple more operations and you got to change so that a plane or a helicopter could be repaired on some of that property. I want to hear it. Maybe it's something else, like Commissioner Hetherington said, where we can do some vocational training facilities there or have some aviation-related airport that doesn't require bringing planes in and out or helicopters in and out. I want to hear it. I want the public to be able to hear it. So I'm not chastising our staff for bringing these things forward. They represent all 5 of us, and I was interested in the meeting. I was interested in hearing about the options. And today we tell them what we think they should or should not be doing. And when I say we, I mean all 5 of us. Thank you.
Yeah, how big is the Public Works property?
Public Works is, let me see.
9?
9 or 10.
Something like that, right? It's big. So we can do a lot with 9 acres. And what I've heard from all of the commissioners is that that's what we want to do, and we want to make it work for general aviation, for small piston aircraft. So that's going to require, that site is going to require an enormous amount of design because it's all over the place right now. There are swales and all kind of stuff it needs to really be reworked. We voted this morning on the 6th Amendment to the golf course design. One of our speakers said that it started out being $100,000, and today with the 6th Amendment, we changed it. We've now spent $750,000 on design. Design is really, really expensive. I have no interest in designing Public Works and Dixie, none. So I won't support that motion because we need to concentrate on Public Works. We need to expedite that. We know that we're going to be spending $14 million on EMAS. So we shouldn't spread ourselves so thin. I just think that it's prudent to just make a decision on the EMAS and also to concentrate on the Public Works site. That's all.
Okay, in response to some of what I just heard, here is what I would liken my comments to. If the environmental staff were to get a call from DEP and DEP says, hey, we got $20 million from the federal government to fill in wetlands. We think it's a really good idea to come to the county commission and tell them, hey, we got a plan to fill in wetlands because we're getting $20 million to do it. My general opinion would be, most of you would say, why in God's name are you bringing us that agenda item? That would be my opinion. And when I complain about this agenda item, it's the same sort of thing. I know what got us to where we are here today, and whether you were here or you weren't here, the political air that surrounded that whole process for all those years was incredibly toxic. And whether you want to hear it or you don't want to hear it, or you want to hear it from the staff in your own personal meetings, that's fine. But I doubt the environmental staff would ever come to this board, even if they were offered $20 million from DEP to fill in wetlands, they would never present that item to us because they know what the response would be. Hell no, never happened, go away. And so I appreciate your critique of my conversation, Ed. I don't buy it. Commissioner Jenkins?
So I agree with Commissioner Hurd to a point. I mean, we have a specific idea of what Public Works site should look like with T-hangers that I would like to see move forward to. But the other, Dixie, is more of a conceptual. I wouldn't say it's going to be a extreme, I mean, there's conceptual ideas, conceptual exercises that need to take place before any actual expensive design would take place. That's all I'm asking for. Right, is just to come up with some concepts of what we could do to benefit the airport and benefit our citizens. So, yes, I would love to spend money today to start design of what Public Works site is going to look like, because I think we all have a good idea of what we're talking about. The other, I'd like to just see some conceptual ideas, business plans, whatever. That's not very expensive, so.
So I think maybe, oh, sorry.
Commissioner Cappy?
Completely agree with what Commissioner Jenkins just said. When I said plans, I didn't mean like hire a consultant, pay someone to create plans, like blueprints, or design anything. I just meant, let's have a plan, a conceptual idea, whether it's the Economic Council or the Business Development Board or any interested parties that wants to come forward and say, hey, I got something, and then we'll just have like a little brainstorming session, not spending $1 on, because we don't even know what it's going to be. So what would you tell a consultant to design? I meant, and then the concept, if Ms. Christ is accurate about relocating our public works, then you can hire someone to go out and shave off 6 months while, even if Public Works is still occupying that space, planners and environmental folks, consultants that are actually on the clock can start that process, overlapping it while the existing tenant is still there. If it's a 6-month shaving of time, well, that's 6 months. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Heatherington?
That, I was just going to clarify that in my motion, it was not to allocate design funds, but to bring back that item for conceptual discussion.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and I think everybody understands what it's for. Do I need to clarify for anybody, or everybody clear? You all clear?
Clear.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Motion carries 3-2 with Smith and Hurd dissenting. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item up is Department of Public Works. Item 6, approval for the acquisition of a vacant parcel in Poinciana Gardens and adoption of a resolution approving and accepting a warranty deed from Karen M. Elrod. Ms. Segura, how are you today?
Good afternoon, Carla Segura, Real Property Manager. This request is for the approval to acquire a vacant parcel in Poinciana Gardens. Poinciana is located in Hobe Sound and consists mostly of single-family homes in the eastern portion and an undeveloped parcels in the western portion. The vacant lands are adjacent to the Atlantic Ridge ecosystem. Over time, the county has acquired approximately 38 acres for conservation. Staff was contacted by the owner of this property, Karen Elrod, requesting that we purchase the property for the market value shown by the property appraiser, which is $2,500. There's no open road access to this parcel, and Ecosystems and Restorations has agreed that the property provides benefits along the headwaters of the northern tributaries of the Loxahatchee River. We ask that the board adopt a resolution approving and accepting the warranty deed and authorize the chairman to execute any documents. If there's any questions.
Thank you. Any
Move to
discussion?
approve.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public wish to discuss this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of the item, say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is Department 7, update of the septic sewer program service availability and connections. Mr. Emerson, good afternoon.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. For the record, Sam Emerson, Utilities Department. The couple meetings back, the board had asked that we come back, direct the staff to come back and give you a brief update on our septic to sewer program, and I'm here to do that. Let me talk about some projects completed to date. We started basically in March of 2019, installing some force mains on the grinder sewer side. As you know, the board approved the policies in 2018, I believe it was December, and then allocated some funding in the following January of 19. So we've been at this about 3 years. There's a little bit of lag time getting started, getting designs complete, permitting, more particular to the vacuum systems because they're so large. Anyway, the first 3 years brings us to March of '22. We've installed grinder sewers in 11 neighborhoods, service availability to 1,500 parcels. And then on the vacuum side, the North River Shores Phase 2 project was completed for 292 parcels. Today, we have about 98% of those in North River Shores connected. Projects under construction. On the grinder sewer side, we have 2 neighborhoods with service slated for 206 parcels. This is Hideaway Isles and Rio South. And on the vacuum side, we're under construction in Golden Gate. We hope to be complete early fall this year, and we'll have 775 parcels with sewer available. Looking ahead through 2025, we plan to have additional grinder sewer service available in 10 neighborhoods throughout the service area. And on the vacuum side, that's the heavy lift we have going right now. We'll have 5 vacuum sewer systems available for service at the end of 2025. That will provide 3,640 parcels with sewer. So to date, the first 3 years, we've made sewer service available to 1,792 parcels. And going through 2025, as I mentioned, when we have the 5 vacuum systems online, we'll have service to over 8,000 parcels in our first 6 years. So it looks like we're on track with your goal of 10,000 service available to 10,000 units over 10 years. We may not get that many connected that early, but we'll keep pushing. Public outreach, education. We'll still try to come up, be creative with some creative financing, which I think is what's encouraged many of the folks to connect early. So if we look at those connected in the first year, that service was available on the grinder side was 32%, and on the vacuum side, 63% for the first year. That seems to
Why
be
is the percentage so much higher on vacuum?
probably because we had so much more available instantly. It was a larger neighborhood, North River Shores, almost 300 units. They had a desire to connect. Much of it's anecdotal. We ask people, why do you want to connect? Is your septic system failing? We try to make records of that, get some feedback, but a lot of it was, well, we just think it's the right thing to do to protect the river. And so I was glad to hear that.
But you also have a really high water table there in North River Shores.
Yes.
I mean, most of those systems are either sitting right on the edge of water or in the water.
Yeah, I know North River Shores Phase 2, that side on Spruce Ridge Drive, as you go in the main entrance, around to the left side, it's very low. You're absolutely right. But
And some of it's socioeconomic. You know, we're looking at the names of these neighborhoods on here, but some neighborhoods have more financial wherewithal to make those connections versus some of our, we're trying to be fair to up and down the economic spectrum. Some neighbors, whatever the connection cost is part of doing business. In other neighborhoods, that's a tremendous amount of money. So I
It
like
sure
what
is.
you
And-
said about finding, unique ways to create financing and opportunities and incentives for people to do it, because I think everybody wants to do it. It's just a matter of how do you eat that elephant?
yeah, we hope they can make that decision before the septic system fails and they're in a real quandary, having to pump that out. But we do have a good relationship with the Solar and Energy Loan Fund. That's worked very well for a lot of homeowners, and we've got additional SHIP funding for this year in that program. And they actually will have funded the complete assessment on a couple of homes in North River Shores, pay the assessment in full, and also the cost to connect and abandon the tank. I said I'd be brief. I wanted to show.
Sam, can you hang 1 second?
Sure.
I was going to say, gravity systems seem to not be installed anywhere anymore. Is that because of the cost?
On a retrofit project, that's correct. It's the most costly alternative. If you're going in new construction, it's more feasible, but as far as retrofits, it's the most costly alternative.
It has a longer lifespan, though, right?
It does, and it does also, too, have some higher energy cost at times, depending on the number of lift stations. Some of the communities we are in our service area that we maintain the lift stations for, like Mariner Sands, there's 5 or 6 or 7 lift stations in one subdivision. And these pumps and the submersible pumps that we use on those type stations are not very efficient. They're about 40 to 60% efficient. So there's a lot of power cost associated with that. I think we kind of over time tend to forget that gravity, once you put it in, it's all gravity, no power, no anything, but it does have some power cost.
Sam, hang on a second. Ms. Krista?
Yes, Mr. Emerson has this slide up on your grant awards. And you'd heard earlier this morning about the FP&L franchise fee and whether or not that was actually a successful venture on our part. We were able to provide $4 million of dedicated funding toward the septic to sewer program, utilizing some of those FP&L franchise fees and other sources of revenue, some from the utilities department, to leverage these grants. We would not get $25 million worth of grant funding had we not shown that we would dedicate the match. Grants require a match. They vary depending on who's doing the match. But I just think it's very important that as folks hear or see these large grant dollars, that they understand that that's because this board made the decision to mandate the assessments and then also dedicate the funding.
Absolutely correct. So it appears we have good standing with the state and the granting agencies, and we hope that continues. But just at a glance, there's some pretty good figures there. You'll see the FDEP at the top, the first two. Those go to fund the actual connections on the private property. It's not used for any infrastructure in the street right-of-way, but that's just to help people get connected. And so what we do is offer a $1,000 discount on that connection rate. What we saw in North River Shores for the vacuum to abandon the septic tank and install a gravity lateral out to the street and restore the yard was $21.77. We bid that out and we manage that for the homeowners. They have the choice to hire their own contractor if they choose, but then we can apply that $1,000 discount to that figure to further reduce their cost. But we're at currently a total of $25 million, which I think is substantial. So with that, if there are any additional questions.
Great. Commissioners? Great, Sam. I asked Sam and our Taryn to do this because I think the facts, the figures get lost sometimes on what we're accomplishing. And Sam and other departments that are partaking in what we're doing to clean up the river are doing a lot. And I think people sometimes forget how much is getting done. So kind of a regular update on where we are and how we're progressing and what the legislature has done, securing funds to DEP and to Water Management District to make sure that we can go after those funds is huge. And every opportunity we get, we should be talking about it and keep promoting it because there's still a lot more to do, but you're well on the way, Sam. It's great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate the board's support in the program.
Anybody else? Anything else? Sam, on that item, thank you. Next item is Department 8 update on the preferred alternative for providing additional water treatment capacity for Western Palm City.
Yes, we wanted to bring you an update. I think Commissioner Smith, you may have asked for that. But we're looking at capacities and for water treatment and water supply, raw water supply, and also distribution needs and capacity in the system. As you know, we have a consolidated system with the North Plant, and Jensen is connected with the water treatment plant and Tropical Farm, so it's one consolidated system. But as growth occurs and things happen, particularly outside of the primary urban service boundary, that causes us to really put our thinking caps on at times to see where those things are going to take place. For example, 7Js and Newfield and Western Palm City and Martingale Commons, et cetera, things like that, we've got to extend lines to service those areas, and that puts a little bit of strain on the system. And so we're looking at where we need to add additional capacity. I've invited Mark Miller. Mark is our utility consultant for water systems, and I'm going to let him go ahead and just walk through a few slides for you, and then if there's any questions at the end, be glad to answer those questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Where's the next step?
I think you just click, left click. There we go.
DEP regulates all water treatment facilities and requires that you submit a capacity analysis report when you exceed 75% of your system capacity. And last spring, actually, the utility had exceeded that, and we recently submitted the CAR back in October 2021. Your comp plan also requires that you begin design improvements at 80% total system capacity and be under construction at 90%, without no additional reservations at 100% rated capacity unless construction improvements is underway. This is a graph of kind of the history of water demands. You can see the CAR was triggered, the 75% was triggered back in early 2021, and even the max day of the red number was the 80% mark. So you can see that that's been exceeded and need to begin design shortly. Some of the capacities and flows, current rated capacity of both facilities. Consolidated system is 18.8 MGD. Pre-phase one, we're upgrading the Tropical Farms facility with some improvements to the stability of the drinking water quality. Phase one, which we're talking about today, was Martin Downs water treatment plant improvements to add an additional 3 MGD. And phase two, or build out, would be adding another 2 MGD. And this build out, these numbers assume no additional service area change. Currently, the flows, the annual average 2021 was actually a little over 11 MGD, with the max day at 15.47 at 82%. So this graph, although busy, shows some of the past total production and projected total water demand. Although these are linear, in reality, it's probably a more of a logarithmic change and reduction over time. But the red shaded parts kind of show the incremental adjustment in capacity to meet those requirements to stay above the 75%. And as you can see, that the smaller portion or hatch part is the Tropical Farms uprating, and then the Martin Downs up to the 19.5 MGD. This is kind of just an oversight or overlook of all the different treatment facilities. The consolidated system includes both the north system, the Jensen Beach facility, and Tropical Farms, the south system, which both have the treatment capacities at them. The red kind of shows the disadvantages or the negatives of providing additional capacity at these facilities. You can see Jensen has some site space limitations, concentrate disposal issues, and really doesn't benefit the western expansion as much. And you can see the expansion costs, including operating costs, are quite high. Tropical Farms, which the original CIP had that facility to be expanded, is a little less costly in terms of capital and operating costs. It's got future expandability. Staff operations is already there. It's an owned site and has adequate concentrate disposal for the membrane process. Martin Downs is currently planned to have high service pumping and storage there. It's an the old plant was there when the system consolidated, so the bones and the infrastructure is already there to expand that. And you can see the costs for that are pretty low compared to the other facilities. The only drawback is staffing, but with the additional high service pumping facility there, will at least be partially staffed for that phase when the treatment will be added. It's kind of just a snapshot that shows pictures of or graphs of the capital costs and operating costs. And you can see Martin Downs on the left is low both on capital and the initial expansion costs as well as operating costs. Conceptual design, you can see the 2 storage tanks, those still exist there today. We're going to be adding high service pumping there to allow pumping to the western corridor and boosting pressure in that area. And you can kind of see the site has adequate space and capacity just for the conceptual layout of a treatment facility. So the preferred alternative, you can see what already exists is optimal location to serve the existing system, which is consolidated, as well as the western corridor. The storage tanks are there, the infrastructure is there. Percolation ponds are still there from the old wastewater plant that allows some limited concentrate disposal from a proposed nanofiltration facility. So your bones and your infrastructure is still there. It's most economical